All 46 members of the Council of Europe have signed a landmark declaration calling on the European Court of Human Rights and their own courts to be more flexible in the way they decide asylum cases, like people coming to the UK in small boats. The declaration calls for courts to accept that inward migration pressures facing European countries have either changed significantly or were unforeseen when the European Convention on Human Rights was drafted in 1951. It also asserts that states have, and I quote, the undeniable sovereign right to establish their own immigration policies and remove foreign nationals who have come into their territory without authorization, and I quote again, in the public interest. This is an attempt to attack the symptoms, but not the causes, of so-called illegal immigration. The whip line would support it in some of its choices. I have said that we need international cooperation to stop the criminal organizations that are taking money from desperate people and sending them across the channel on flimsy craft that are not made to carry as many people as they do, as far as they do. The declaration says countries, including the UK, should be allowed to pursue deals with other countries, including the potential creation of so-called return hubs beyond Europe, in order to prevent people smuggling and catching the people responsible for it. Connected to this is the statement that a hostile state or other actor cannot be allowed to undermine European democracies and the values on which the Convention is founded, and to abuse the system that it was established to protect. To me, this suggests that other states might be sending people to countries like the UK for reasons of their own. The inference is that there may be an attempt to undermine the UK's way of life. I don't know how the authorities would be able to ascertain that this was happening, but I certainly would not want it to. I would therefore support this as well. Intelligence sharing, financial tracking, maritime enforcement and joint policing operations are all necessary, and that is already broadly accepted by governments across Europe. The agreement stresses that while Article 3 of the European Convention on Human Rights absolutely bans torture, a failed migrant should not be able to avoid deportation by complaining that their country's hospitals or social conditions are below the standards of, for example, the United Kingdom. I agree with this too. If someone in a foreign country thinks the UK's health system is better than theirs, the answer is to seek improvement of their own system, not to try to freeload onto ours. And the document underlines a now long established principle that the right to family life does not bar a person from deportation, and that national courts are best placed to work out when a person who asserts that right should be denied it. Again, I would tend to agree. But these are all measures to deal with people who have already come to Council of Europe countries, addressing the consequences of migration pressure rather than its causes. The agreement is essentially a collective political message from member governments calling on judges to give greater weight to national democratic decisions on immigration policy. Courts may take notice of that pressure, but they are not obliged to reinvent convention rights in the way government wants. That means the practical effect could be modest, unless governments also change their own procedures, evidence standards, appeal systems, and bilateral return agreements. I have gone further, stating that we also need international cooperation to inform the people who want to come here that there is no place for them, except in exceptional circumstances. And, more than anything, we need international cooperation to stop people wanting to come here. These suggestions are considerably broader and more strategically coherent, I think, because they recognize that migration is not simply a border control problem. Large-scale, irregular migration generally emerges from a combination of war and instability, economic collapse, climate pressure, corruption, organized crime, demographic imbalance, and the perception that other countries offer safety, work, and long-term settlement opportunities. As long as these drivers remain, enforcement alone struggles to keep pace. This is partly because of the big contradiction. Governments want migrants to believe entry will fail, but if even a minority succeed and establish themselves, the perception of opportunity persists, and this is driven as much by information networks and community stories as by official policy. This leads into my remaining claim, which is about asylum, that it should be provided only to people who genuinely need to be in the UK. The problem here is that the UK's asylum system, and presumably those of other European countries, were designed after World War II, around individuals fleeing state persecution with no safe alternative. Now they are being stretched, because modern migration flows are mixed. Some are genuine refugees, some are economic migrants, some are both simultaneously, and many pass through multiple safe countries because they don't want to stop there. Why not? It doesn't matter to the courts. They examine whether a person faces danger if they are sent back to their country of origin, not whether they are coming here for money or could have stopped in another country before getting here, or are part of a group whose numbers are politically inconvenient to the UK's government. This risks creating a cycle where the rhetoric around migration hardens, possibly because of governments, possibly due to public feeling. The courts then resist change. Public frustration grows, populist parties gain support and possibly even power with their grievance politics, and the government then demands even tougher measures. That is happening across much of Europe. The only genuine long-term solution relates to my final point, that we need to stop people wanting to come here. But this is also the most difficult politically. It requires foreign aid targeted at stability and development, an end to conflicts in the relevant countries, trade policies that do not undermine poorer economies, anti-corruption efforts, climate adaptation, and realistic legal migration pathways. Those policies are expensive, slow, and politically difficult to sell because voters often want immediate, visible reductions in arrivals. So a better approach might involve parallel tracks. Aggressive international action against trafficking gangs, yes please. Faster and clearer asylum decisions. Rapid removal of people with failed claims where genuine safety risks do not exist. And the work to stop people wanting to leave their own countries. It would cost more, but then the UK government only spends £4.7 billion a year, around 0.36% of total government spending, on dealing with asylum seekers. Considering the importance of the issue to voters, there should be no problem with expanding the expenditure to expedite a solution. Right?